All right, so I will be going over the review of previous and similar case studies. So the first related case study took place in Rochester, New York, where 3 grains of pollen were being used to solve a 27-year-old unsolved murder. Essentially, a teenage girl was found in a cornfield in 1979. She was about 15 years old at the time of her death and was found to be shot in the forehead, dragged into a field, and then shot in the back. Botanist Von Bryant found 3 microscopic Australian pine pollen grains that were recovered from inside the girl's jacket and pants pocket. These pollen grains only could have possibly come from Arizona, Florida, or most likely Southern California. They were also inferring that she did not leave the country, but the possibility of these pollen grains ending up in New York area is close to impossible. So this case was still somewhat in the air, given that 2 separate serial killers claimed responsibility and both killers are no longer alive. But this is related to our case study since investigators were able to pinpoint a location using pollen regarding the whereabouts of a crime. In our case study, pollen from boots were able to locate the bodies of Holly and Jessica, whereas in the unknown girl case that I just discussed, pollen was used to realize the crime itself did not take place in New York like they previously believed. Her body just must have ended up there, and that's the questions that they still have to this day. So the second case I want to build on is a murder that a botanist from the Natural History Museum in London was tasked with aiding in by investigators. So they found rotting remains of an unidentified man that were covered in vegetation beside a river. Investigators were unsure of how long the body had been there and needed to establish some sort of timeline to find out how long it had been there. So botanist Dr. Mark Spencer was tasked with this investigation, and he went and inspected the overgrown site and found flattened Himalayan balsam. So what's important about this is that Himalayan balsam is known for dying back every winter and it regrows in the springtime. The crushed stems that he found made it clear that the plant was about 6 months old, and the amount of regrowth that had occurred around and under the body pointed towards the body having been there for about 2 months. And Dr. Spencer was able to pass on this information to the police so that they could continue on their investigation, now knowing how old the body was. So this is related to our case study, since in our Holly and Jessica case, the type of new side shoots found only grows back once the stinging nettle plants that they had found there had been disturbed, which gave police a timeline and also gave them an idea that, this had been disturbed, therefore someone had been here. And yeah. But in the Dr. Spencer's investigation, he utilized the disturbed crushed stems and their regrowth to understand how long the body had been there, which therefore gave police a timeline on about how long the body had been there. These are my sources from both of these cases, and thank you.